The girl had already pushed open a door. Go in. Talk to you later. Wait for my good news. I hurriedly put away my phone. I put on a proper smile. Hello. When I saw who was in the office clearly, the second half of the sentence got stuck in my throat like a fishbone. The man sitting behind the desk and writing vigorously at this time? Who else could it be but Ethan? I felt terrible. The heroic words, "I want to be your father," from that night were still vivid in my mind. What did this bastard want to do now? To mess with me? I was so angry that I laughed on the spot. Ethan? What do you mean? Ethan didn't even raise his eyebrows. What do you think? Really? Was he really that childish? I was incredulous and didn't know what to say for a moment. The winter afternoon sun shone through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, spreading warmly on the carpet along the windowsill. But the room was chilly and quiet, with only the sound of his pen tip rubbing against the paper. My mom was right. You're really bored. Ethan stopped writing at this time and closed the folder. Are you not happy to be favored? After finishing what he was doing, he leaned back and then slowly looked up at me. You're looking for a job. And I need people. Is there a problem? He had a completely businesslike tone. But his flirtatious eyes made me read another meaning. Yes. It was a silent provocation. It was like saying, "What are you thinking?" I was so angry that I wanted to smash my handbag in his face on the spot. As if unaware of my anger, Ethan looked through my resume and said slowly, "There's a lot of exaggeration here." My cheeks burned red, and I was so embarrassed that I wanted to disappear. Ethan knew exactly what I was capable of. If I had known this resume would end up in his hands, I would never have made it like this. Here. Ethan pointed at the resume as if he was about to comment. I quickly rushed over and snatched the resume from his hand. Don't look. I shamefully stuffed the resume into my bag. I won't work in your company. Ethan infuriately withdrew his empty hand and took a metal cigarette case from the table and knocked out a cigarette. He held the white cigarette between his lips and asked politely with a sideways glance, "Do you mind?" Don't you know if I mind or not? I'm not a fan of smoking. But I'm especially obsessed with Ethan when he smokes. The first time I saw him, he was smoking. At 17, I landed in Paris alone. Ethan was entrusted by my father to pick me up. In Paris that day, the weather was not good. It had just rained and was gloomy. Ethan was leaning against the car smoking. The hazy smoke blurred his cold face. The white smoke dispersed in the gloomy weather, and his silhouette was like a mystery in the fog. Just standing there. He was fascinating. I later remembered that maybe I fell in love with him at first sight. Ethan standing in the smoke on a cloudy day. I could never forget. After we got together, Ethan hardly smoked in front of me, except for after-sex cigarettes. On those nights, he stood on the balcony with his back to me. His tall figure blended into the night, with wisps of white smoke floating. It was like there was some magic that attracted me to walk over and hug him from behind. Regarding smoking, since I could remember these things, couldn't Ethan? He deliberately asked me if I minded as if nothing had happened. It was hard for me not to suspect that he was secretly stirring up my memories. He succeeded. I suddenly felt a bit discouraged and also a bit angry. Bastard. Not loving me but still flirting with me. What a jerk. Every cell in my body was screaming to kill him. I forced a smile. I don't mind. Smoke more and die earlier. Save yourself decades of trouble. Ethan looked at me with the cigarette in his teeth. You want me to die so much? Yes. Asking a question when you already know the answer. What a jerk. Ethan's eyes were deep, and he didn't reply. The cool air in the air invaded my skin, and I felt uneasy being stared at by him. Forget it. I couldn't be bothered with him. Just as my foot was about to move, a voice came from outside the door. Mr. Meng. Miss Yi is here. Miss Yi? I almost immediately remembered. Mia. The first time I knew about this woman was from an album at Ethan's house. In front of the Eiffel Tower. She was standing beside Ethan, her head slightly tilted towards him. almost resting on his shoulder. White dress. Long black straight hair. Good figure. Beautiful face. Pure and gentle temperament. A typical template of a campus goddess and a good wife and mother. I was a girl who couldn't tolerate any sand in her eyes and immediately asked Ethan. He casually said, "My friend's sister. Can your friend's sister make you cherish her photos so much?" The album was given by her. Ethan wasn't in the mood to talk. His hand slipped under my skirt and shamelessly ended the topic. If the story had ended there, I wouldn't have remembered the name Mia so deeply. I actually saw Mia at Ethan's house. That morning, when I opened the door, I saw Mia, who had come across the ocean, wearing my pajamas and walking out of the bedroom with sleepy eyes. Suddenly, my wrist was tightly grasped by him, and I came back to my senses from my memory. Before I had time to react, I was stuffed under the desk by Ethan. I wanted to kill someone. I tried to struggle, but Ethan's palm was pressed on my head. I had no doubt that if I dared to resist, he would press me back with more force. Yes, he had always been such a dominant person. In such a situation, I could actually force myself to calm down. Damn bastard. Did he think I would cooperate obediently and hide here without making a sound? I'll scare your childhood sweetheart to death later. The sound of high heels on the carpet was very light. I heard Mia call him gently, Yanzi. Although a long time had passed, my blood still boiled when I heard this voice. She called him so affectionately. Ethan's tone didn't show any, but his body leaned forward and he took down the cigarette from his lips. This small action made me feel a mix of emotions. He really took good care of her. He didn't even light the cigarette. I heard from my brother that you've been very busy recently. I made some soup for you. Ethan didn't refuse and chatted with Mia casually. Although it was all some insignificant daily trivia, I still felt uncomfortable all over and silently rolled my eyes. What made me even more angry was that Ethan dealt with Mia calmly. And the hand under the table that was pressing on my head wasn't idle either. His hand wandered to my cheek, and his fingertip touched my lips as if by accident. I gritted my teeth and my anger flared up. The space was narrow, and I couldn't move at all. All I could see was his ankle exposed under his neat suit, with prominent bones. The sound of Ethan and Mia chatting and laughing echoed in my ears. Remembering those past events, my anger grew even stronger. I couldn't help but open my lips and bit his finger hard. Ethan felt the pain, but this bastard could really endure it. There was no trace on his face, and he didn't let me notice anything at all. How could I let him go? I bit him again with more force. Didn't he want to hide me? Then it would be more fun if he exposed himself. But unexpectedly, Ethan really felt pain this time, but still didn't make a sound. He only resisted and pushed against my teeth. I was so choked that tears came out. I almost cried out, but he covered my mouth with his hand. I have something to do. Let's talk later. Ethan coldly dismissed her at this time. Mia obediently got up and left, until the footsteps disappeared after the door opened. He let go of me and pulled me out. After coming to my senses, I realized belatedly that I had actually been at his mercy, and hadn't let me know of my existence. This realization made me angry. I raised my foot and kicked Ethan hard. Are you fucking crazy? I was so angry that my eyes were red. To please your current girlfriend, you can treat me like this? Ethan didn't dodge or stop me, and was actually kicked hard by me. He curled his lips. She's not my current girlfriend. You're not together? I was stunned and my anger subsided a bit. Ethan pursed his lips and didn't answer. It doesn't make sense. I wasn't afraid to be sarcastic and laughed. Such a gentle and beautiful woman who has been around you affectionately for years. Even if your heart was a stone, it should have been warmed up by now. Ethan still didn't respond to me and only looked at me with cold eyes. Finally getting a chance to taunt him, I certainly wouldn't let it go. I asked with great interest. Why? Annoyed by my question, Ethan said coldly, our horoscopes don't match. I was speechless for a moment, and then my anger flared up again. Then why did you hide me under the table? At first, I thought he pushed me under the table to hide me because he was afraid Mia would overthink and be unhappy. Admittedly, when he pressed me under that narrow table, he almost drowned me. I even felt that the youth I had given to Ethan in those years was wasted. But now, after this incident, it seemed it wasn't what I thought. Sorry. It was a reflex. Ethan took out a tissue and slowly wiped his fingers. A reflex? I was confused and looked at him coldly. Ethan's hand was extremely good-looking, with long and white finger bones. When I saw the bite mark on his middle finger that was bleeding, my face slowly burned up. In my mind, like a movie playing, countless past scenes flashed by. It was so embarrassing. Ethan, you pervert. I didn't even have the courage to look at him and fled in a hurry. I rushed out of the building in one breath. I ran too fast and didn't notice the way ahead and bumped straight into the person coming towards me. He groaned in pain. I rubbed my sore face and, after seeing that it was Xander in front of me, asked embarrassed lie in a low voice, "Are you okay? What do you think?" Xander's tone was unfriendly. The rib I injured has just gotten a bit better. And now it's been bumped and through and again by you. I knew that he had been injured in the chest during a fight at the bar a while ago. However, I didn't expect it to be so serious. I'll take you to the hospital. Forget about the hospital. He pressed his chest, looking quite painful. Help me to the car and let me rest for a while. I really didn't suspect that he was taking advantage of the situation on purpose. But I did see a flash of cunning in his eyes. It disappeared in an instant. Okay. It was my fault. And I couldn't deny it. I obediently helped him back to the car. Xander slumped in the seat and looked at me pitifully. Rub it for me. Anyone who wasn't stupid could see his little trick. Right? I pushed him away unkindly. If you pretend again, I'll really break your rib. A cold-hearted woman. Xander couldn't pretend anymore and covered his chest and moved away a bit. Good that you know. Xander resignedly went back to the driving seat. Okay. I won't argue with you. On the way back, Xander remembered to ask, "Did you come to the company to see my little uncle?" When he mentioned it, my ears inexplicably burned again. Uncomfortably. I turned to look out of the window. How could that be? I'm looking for a job recently and accidentally sent my resume to his company and came for an interview. Xander was half believing and half doubting. He quickly glanced at me. Then why did you run out blushing? I was asked and felt guilty. So I made up a random reason. I met a pervert. What? A pervert? Xander raised his voice and asked through gritted teeth. Tell me quickly which bastard bullied you? I'll go and twist his head off right now. My heart trembled. I didn't expect his reaction to be so big. If Ethan knew that his nephew called him a bastard, his expression should be very interesting. Thinking like this, I couldn't help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Nothing. I was joking. Why are you so worried? Xander didn't say anything. A few minutes later, he raised his eyebrow playfully and asked, Yolanda, really don't want to give it a try with me? Bringing this up again. I rolled my eyes at him. Don't tell me you weren't forced to go on a blind date. I don't believe it. Xander pretended to be good in front of the elders. But he wasn't a nice person behind their backs. Would he be willing to go on a blind date? Only a fool would believe it. Force me? Xander arrogantly curled his lips. Who can force me to do something I don't want to do? No matter what I said. My father just stuck to his own stubborn idea. Fortunately, a real big shot behind the scenes in my family stood by my side. I don't think so. Daughter, if you think the young man's character and ability are trustworthy, then give it a try. Mom supports you. What a great mom I have. It's true that girls understand girls' minds best. Seeing that my father still wanted to object, my mother had already stood behind him, creating a rather powerful deterrent. Mr. Payne, can we take this back door? My father gave in. Who told my good mother to be? under the underhanded operation. I returned to my post the next day. Seeing me return to the unit, Zachary didn't seem too surprised. "Since you're back, work hard." Strangely enough, this guy always has a kind of kingly air that makes people feel that he is the real boss behind the scenes even without getting angry. "By the way, after lunch, I'm going to resign." Just as I was about to take a bite of the chicken cutlet, Zachary dropped a bombshell on me. "What's going on? The supervisor praised him so much yesterday. Why does he want to resign?" Unable to hide the doubts in my heart, I blurted out. But Zachary didn't explain much. He just unscrewed the cap of my lemon tea for me. His careful and unflappable attitude made me even more obsessed with him. A very narcissistic thought popped up. "Are you resigning because of me? It would be dull without you." Looking at the sky outside the restaurant, Zachary seemed to be answering me and talking to himself at the same time. Oh my God. Kill me to add to his fun. Could it be that all this time, it wasn't just me being self-absorbed, but a sweet two-way pursuit until death? Nervously rubbing my hands, I wondered if I should take this opportunity to take our relationship a step further. All kinds of sweet scenes from idol dramas were flashing through my mind like a revolving lantern. Then, Zachary's words pulled me back to the harsh reality. The company's business model is too old. And there are big problems with the personnel distribution structure. There are too many parasites. And it's beyond saving. Although they hold seemingly good resources, it's more like an invisible small warehouse left by a large company to hide its strength. In fact, it has no real foothold. So, I need to cut my losses immediately. This guy analyzed it so well that even the shredded potatoes in front of him seemed more upscale. Sure enough, Zachary went to resign in the afternoon. The supervisor chased him from the office to the men's restroom but couldn't change his mind. When I told my father what Zachary had said, his expression changed involuntarily. He was stubborn, and even if he had a good impression, he wouldn't admit it so quickly. But my mother, on the other hand, praised him without hesitation. This young man is indeed a rare talent. He could see these problems after just one day. Given time, he will definitely be a powerful figure who can hold his own. The corners of my mouth couldn't help but curl up into a perfect arc. My father's face still showed a hint of soreness, and my mother teased him even more. "I heard he's good-looking too." I continued to nod vigorously. My father finally couldn't control his expression and joined the discussion between my mother and me. "Men can't be judged by their looks alone," he muttered with his mouth pursed and his butt wiggled in my direction. "But my daughter can't find someone who doesn't look good either." My mother hit the nail on the head. To be honest, at first, I was indeed attracted to Zachary's looks. But what made me decide to start from scratch and pursue him was his overall strength. As my mother said, although he comes from a poor family, he has great potential. Which girl doesn't want to find a wise support? Moreover, he has a perfect appearance. So cheesy. So cheesy. It doesn't matter if Zachary left. My back door was open for nothing. At a critical moment, it was my mother who came to the rescue. She found the supervisor and taught him what to say personally to coax Zachary back. I thought that being in the same space would help us develop our relationship and take it further. Unexpectedly, I didn't meet an ordinary man. In fact, since Zachary came back, the time we actually worked together in the office didn't exceed half a month. He was first transferred and then promoted. In less than 3 months, he had become my boss. What a huge gap. There are more and more women eyeing him hungrily. And even some unconventional men have joined in. Just a few days ago, I saw a young man put the snacks in his hand on Zachary's desk. I was pressing my filtrum crazily. Otherwise I really couldn't bear it. On my side, not to mention any sign of a relationship, I didn't even see a tiny bit more than others. The road to chasing my husband is extremely long. But Zachary's career path is becoming clearer and clearer. The company's top leaders have praised Zachary to my father more than once, and have been recommending him to develop in the head office. My father, who was a bit sour before, gradually had a normal expression. No, I have to seize this opportunity. I was stabbing the straw angrily, feeling very irritable, seeing that I had no progress. My best friend offered another plan. Are you stupid? Can't you create some obstacles? But it doesn't have to be something that makes him socially dead. Instead, at a critical moment, you step forward, save the hero beautifully, and then take the opportunity to develop a relationship. Besides, it's easier for a woman to pursue a man. Can't you even break through a layer of gauze? My best friend analyzed it so well that she had even started to search for what style of bridesmaid dress she should choose, using underhanded tactics just to seek marriage. I understand this principle. Unfortunately, I had already tried this before my best friend gave her advice. I lost his documents, but he just recited them from memory throughout the process. I made a mistake with his tender documents, and he just took the opportunity to invalidate them and avoided a meaningless project. I gave the wrong location for a business dinner, but unexpectedly, he managed to close another big deal. It turns out that Zachary is the one favored by fate. Stop it. I'll figure it out myself. Has it really come to this? Is there really no other way? If the hard way doesn't work, then try the soft way. It happened to be a company team building. From the moment I walked into the barbecue restaurant, I pretended to be drunk. My head was almost buried in Zachary's sweater, but he remained unmoved. He is like a huge steel plate that you rarely encounter, so hard that my feet are almost swollen from kicking it. But I still can't stir him. Sitting on the sofa, my mouth was so wide open that it could hold a big oil bottle. It was my father who couldn't stand it first. What's so arrogant about that guy? My daughter is so perfect. The people who pursue her could line up to Paris. Why doesn't he take a liking to her? My father's work efficiency is very high. The next day, he started to arrange all kinds of talented men for me. There was a young tennis champion. There was a successful young heir of a family. After meeting a highly educated student with 2 doctorate degrees, there was followed by the youngest Michelin chef. In short, there were all kinds of people, fat or thin, good at household chores or not. But they're not what I want. I only like Zachary. I was completely lovesick. My father was even worried about me. After smoking 3 cigarettes, he said in a gloomy voice, "Why don't we tie him up first?" Before the gloomy and resentful atmosphere could be fully developed, it was broken by my mother. "It's not a movie. Can you stop pretending to be a godfather?" My father was cut off pitifully and chased after my mother to coax her. Even today, as a girl in my prime, I can only eat the old dog food of my father and mother. I'm so envious. When it rains, it pours. When a tiger pretends to be a kitten, someone will bully it. I'm still trying to figure out how to attract Zachary, while someone is already preparing to overtake me on a curve. I'm going to confess to Zachary after work tonight. Wish me success. In the bathroom, I hid in the 4th cubicle and spied for 10 minutes. Fortunately, I finally heard the most crucial time point. As my number 1 rival in love, the office goddess Yasmin has decided to make a move today. Woo woo woo. Is my unrequited love going to end like this? As the clock was about to strike 5, my heart was extremely nervous. Somehow, I summoned up the courage and rushed into Zachary's office. Seeing me suddenly appear, he was clearly stunned. What's wrong? The seconds ticked by, and my heart was beating at an unprecedented rate. Finally, it was time to get off work. "I like you. Can you be my boyfriend?" Finally, I said it. Before entering, I deliberately stood in an obvious position so that Yasmin could probably see me. At this moment, I was in the room, and even if she wanted to do something, she could only give up for now. Fortunately, people outside could only see my back, because if I turned around, they would see my blushing face. Putting down his pen, Zachary stared at me. Then, he smiled. This local male fox spirit is going to be the death of me. This time. What's the reason? Do you want to ask for a leave or get an excellent grade in the quarterly assessment? Tempting your boss is an even greater offense. You are punished to stay and work overtime today. What are you doing? I'm serious. Zachary chased me out of the door without mercy. All my colleagues left one by one. And only I was nibbling on takeout and writing furiously. Falling in love with a straight guy who only cares about work is so hard for me. There was no progress in my relationship. And even my mother started to worry. Daughter, it's not a good deal if you're too eager. Why don't you consider someone else? I hadn't even remembered the names of the many people she introduced last time. And my mother was about to arrange new ones. My father, who had always spoiled me, also stepped forward. Don't go on blind dates. I say we should just get engaged. Wait. Did I hear that right? We haven't even started anything. And now we're talking about getting engaged. Although I was 100% willing in my heart. Zachary probably didn't even understand my feelings. Dad. Actually, I haven't. A few days ago, old Fu told me about his youngest son. I'm very satisfied. A daughter is hard to keep when she grows up. The Fu family is such a good match that there's nothing to be picky about. It seemed that they reached an agreement in an instant. And my mother also joined the persuasion team for marriage. Yes. Marriage is a major event in life. Pearl is too naive. We still have to take more care. My father and mother sang in harmony, and decided on my marriage just through their words. And it was with someone I had never even met. This won't do. I immediately refused and firmly stated that I would not comply. But my father and mother were stubborn, and said they planned to meet the future son-in-law in person in a few days to help me check. What is this all about? Unable to argue with them, I had to go back to my room. Lying on my 3-meter-wide bed, I tossed and turned, unable to understand. If it was just my mother's idea, I could understand. But even my father agreed. It was really unexpected. My parents had never been snobbish. This could be seen from the fact that my mother could sincerely praise Zachary before. But this time, they didn't seem to be joking. While I was still in doubt, my father and mother gave me an even bigger shock. What? You decided on someone just after playing 2 rounds of cards? Who said that? Your grandma also played 4 rounds of mahjong with that child. Grandma was very cooperative and kept praising him for knowing how to feed cards. As the saying goes, a person's character can be seen from their card-playing style. Look. Your grandma has nodded. This matter is settled. Oh. Unexpectedly. One day my lifelong event was decided under the witness of 8 won, and 1 chick, in mahjong. Fine. If I can't argue, can't I just avoid it? I declined my parents' kindness to introduce me to the rich young master and found an excuse to temporarily live in my small apartment in the city center. With this on my mind, I did a good job at work. Speaking of which, I have to thank the straight guy's Zachary again. Under his encouragement and motivation, I also devoted myself more seriously to work. And even the supervisor who didn't have a good opinion of me at first rarely praised me. Pearl still has great potential. Although she wasn't the person I most wanted to attract, I was still very happy to receive a sincere compliment. Maybe this is the happiness of ordinary people. Speaking of Zachary again, he is definitely not an ordinary person. He had a sharp eye and won a major project. After everyone worked hard overnight, the contract was finally signed successfully. At the celebration banquet, I was more excited than him. Some envious people praised him while making fun of me. But I didn't care. The boy I liked was so excellent. I was happier than anyone, even if he might never be with me. With my cheeks flushed, I finally got into a car with him shamelessly. Zachary, your eyes are so small. My fingers waved in the air and finally landed on his face. A man grabbed my hand with a bitter smile. But I held it tightly. You're drunk. Whether I'm drunk or not, I know better than him. The alcohol couldn't affect me. Only his eyes could make me lose my reason instantly and move forward bravely. Your eyes are small. Otherwise, how could you not see that I like you? Like you so much. Woo woo. First, I confessed. And then I started to cry. After making a fuss in the car for a long time, even the driver spoke up to persuade us. Little brother. Look. The girl likes you so much. Why don't you consider it? On every road, there is a concerned taxi driver. The middle-aged man's gossipy heart for urging marriages reached its peak because of my unrequited love. The driver, who had only met me once, kept speaking well of me. One might think I had hired him as a master. Thank you for your concern. This is my fiancé. Unfortunately, I didn't hear this amazing sentence at all. I only vaguely felt the touch of skin on my forehead. So warm and gentle. When I woke up, my phone was almost ringing off the hook from home calls. My usually calm mother, after receiving my call, just said seriously, "Come home. Something has happened at home." I drove the car as fast as possible within the safe range. As soon as I entered the house, I was pulled away. The most expensive stylist in the city personally styled me. Before I could even react, a super exquisite look had been created for me. Who can tell me what kind of accident this is? Finally, my mother nodded at me with satisfaction and gave the answer I most wanted to know. Your father has been cheated. His money is tied up. The bank is demanding repayment. The family is going to go bankrupt. The bolt from the blue had only struck halfway when my mother added another blow. But a rich man has taken a liking to you and decided to choose you as his youngest son's wife. You will meet tonight, engaged on the weekend. Family bankruptcy. A marriage alliance with a wealthy family. My mind conjured up a romance novel worth at least 1,000,000 words with daily updates. I looked at my father, and he kept avoiding my eyes. Couldn't even my father protect me? It seemed that the family was really in a desperate situation. What time tonight? With and reason. I decided to accept this fate. 7:30. On Champs-Élysées Avenue. Got it. Where are you going? Mom. I'm a part of the family. I will definitely take on the family's responsibilities. I promise. But before the meeting, I want some time for myself. Don't worry. I'll be on time. I showed a sweet and sad smile and turned to leave. Behind me, my mother watched my leaving figure and couldn't help but question. Husband, did we take this joke too far? Why does our daughter's back look so tragic? My father didn't reply. My mother turned around in confusion and saw my father with tears streaming down his face. No. Husband. Why are you crying? Stop crying. Stop crying. It's not like we're really bankrupt. Probably moved by my sacrifice. My father bit his lip to hold back his sobs. But the tears flowed like a broken faucet. That scene scared the person who came to get the settlement bill. Regrettably, I didn't know about these things until much later. Because at that time, I was only thinking about one thing. I closed the curtains and put on some soft music. I sat quietly, waiting for someone to come. From childhood to adulthood, I witnessed many happy and unhappy moments. The same thing happened to my friends. Some resisted. Some accepted their fate. Of course, there were also those who resisted but finally accepted their fate. I knew my position and my responsibilities. There was no need to make a fuss. But before returning to my fate, I wanted to selfishly give myself a small gift. Seeing Zachary hurrying over, I showed my most beautiful smile. Without any hesitation or testing, I simply hugged him tightly. What's wrong? Didn't you say you had a fever? Zachary didn't push me away. He just used his hand to feel my forehead. There was a faint smell of alcohol in the air. And he smelled it too. You drank again? It sounded like a reproach, but also like concern. In the dim room I deliberately created, only a beam of light shone through the curtain gap into the room. The mist in my eyes deepened because of the man in front of me, and a sweet feeling emerged from the mist. I kissed him without hesitation. not giving him any chance to regret. It was a soft, fragrant kiss, as if it didn't exist. But it connected Zachary and me. I was a bit of a female wolf. But please, God, don't blame me. Because once I'm engaged, I really won't dare to do this. Zachary didn't push me away, and even responded gently. His hand on my forehead gradually moved down and cupped my cheeks. Suddenly, the distance was pulled apart, and the two of us regained our after the ambiguity. You've had too much to drink. The man's words were full of panic, and the implication that we should both calm down. I don't have endless courage either. Once the distance was pulled apart, it was the end. Yes, I seem to be a bit sleepy. Please close the door when you leave. I smiled awkwardly and didn't even have the courage to look at him again. I rushed into the bedroom and slowly leaned against the door to listen. About 10 minutes later, I finally heard the sound of the door closing. I walked out again. Looking around, everything was the same as before. The wine glass was washed and hung up, and the wine bottle was put back in its place. Everything, like the kiss just now, could only be remembered in my mind. It seemed that there was no fate between him and me. Never in a million years did I expect a huge plot twist at me next. Yes, with great restraint. I didn't explode at the blind date table. After the fathers left, I didn't show any good looks. The boy, who was also, didn't even take his car and just followed me obediently. He didn't speak, but I knew he was there. I got angrier and angrier as I walked, and even kicked the stone steps beside me hard. Be careful. Zachary couldn't pretend to be silent anymore and rushed over. Little princess. Be angry with me if you want. Don't hurt yourself. Okay? He crouched down to check my foot, looking very concerned. Go away. You big liar. Don't pretend to be nice. Thinking about how I had been tricked for so long, I was furious. Probably realizing that I was too difficult to persuade. This guy simply gave me a Princess Carrie, and then sat on a bench. No matter how I hit him, he just smiled and watched me without saying a word. Gradually, I got tired of hitting and most of my anger dissipated. His strong and warm arms gradually soothed my restless mood. When did you know who I was? Don't be pedantic. If you don't tell me, I'm leaving. Be good. I'll tell you. I always knew who you were. The blind date was mentioned by my family when I first entered university. And then they showed me your photo. From the moment you stopped me on University Road, I had a feeling it was you. Later, I asked my aunt about your school and confirmed it. At first, I really didn't think much about it. In fact, I was even a bit unhappy. He was very articulate when talking about the past. I thought that you liked someone just because he looked okay without even knowing him. It made me feel very insecure. Nonsense. Who said I like you? I couldn't help but want to interrupt. But the more I argued, the less confident I felt. If you don't like me, why did you trick me into internet your father's company? If you don't like me, why did you confess to me in my office? If you don't like me, why did you call me to your house before the blind date? I covered my ears. I really couldn't listen anymore. But Zachary wouldn't let me. He gently put his head close to my ear and continued to murmur about things I didn't know. I'm not a big liar. I'm just a coward. Hiding my identity at work was to give myself peace of mind and also to prove something to your parents. I'm worthy of you. Whether I'm Gary's youngest son or not. I should be Pearl's future husband. My face blushed like a sunset because of the boy's bold declaration. Suddenly, what my parents had said before rushed into my mind. They not only met but also played ball. So they should have known long ago. Wait. Did my parents also lie to me about the family going bankrupt? Although I already had an answer in my mind, I still asked again. Unwilling to give up. I don't know about that. But when I played ball with Uncle, he kept hinting that he would prepare a huge dowry for you, which made my father say that the original betrothal gifts must be doubled when he got home. Well, The old fox and the young fox are together. So I'm the only fool hunter who pretends to be smart. When I get home, I'll settle old and new scores together. My body was lifted off the ground again as Acri stood up and started walking. Where are you going? I unconsciously hooked his neck. I had no choice as I was too high off the ground. Taking you home. And don't you have unfinished business this afternoon? He looked innocent, saying the most attractive words. I hit him hard. But the smile that gradually showed on my face betrayed me. It was sweeter than any time and more anticipated than any time. The end of the play for two actors. And the appearance of another couple of lovers. Natsumso Saki said, "The moonlight is so beautiful tonight. But I want to say, it's just like the scene at this moment. And at this moment. And at this moment. And at this moment. And at this moment."